Friday night, Chris Paul injures his left hand, which was later reported as a fracture. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Dr. Stefan Wilson, and the intention of this channel is to break down the mechanism of injury in sports. So if we turn our attention to the replay here, Friday night the Warriors were playing the Pistons, and in the third quarter, Chris Paul takes a jump shot, and then he takes a couple of steps to reach out for his rebound. Number 23 for the Pistons here does end up with the rebound and the ball on the play, but he must have made contact with Paul, as we can see Paul pull up here and he clutches his left hand. In the frame here, Paul is bent over. He's pushing his right thumb into the palm of his left hand, and he seems to be investigating what's wrong here. Then he turns and walks towards the Warriors bench and continues to the locker room. He seems dejected as he is now injured, and he's probably also in a lot of pain. Paul did not return to the game. I could not find another replay that showed Paul falling or landing hard on his left hand in some sort of traumatic event that would cause like a FOOSH injury, like a Colles or a Smith's fracture. So for the point of this conversation, we will go with the video that is available and assume that Paul's fracture did occur on the play that we just watched. There may have been an underlying injury that was made worse by this play, but his left hand was good enough to allow Paul to play in the game and to take that jump shot that we just saw. Only after the run-in with the Pistons player did Paul show signs of significant injury and then head back to the locker room. So let's break down the video that we do have here. Again, with the absence of a traumatic fall, we will assume the fracture occurred on the play that we can see. If Paul's left hand did make contact with the Pistons player, it is unlikely that the pressure or the blunt force of contact would have been great enough to actually cause a bone fracture. It may have given him a bruise or a skin or muscle contusion, maybe a laceration, but probably not a fracture. Therefore, what likely may have happened is that his left thumb or his finger got bent backwards or in an awkward wave that when he made contact with the Pistons player when they ran past him. Paul easily could have had his thumb or finger get caught in, say, the material of the Pistons player's jersey, or even get bent backwards from contact with his body. Either way, the same outcome would have occurred, which is taking a joint beyond its normal physiological range of motion. When this happens, the connective tissue that stabilizes the joint would certainly become stretched and injured. Most often we are referring to a ligament or a tendon. Now, a ligament is a strong band of dense connective tissue that connects a bone to a bone, while a tendon is a band of tissue that connects a muscle to a bone. Sometimes if you pull on one of these really hard, the connective tissue will come off or tear off of the bone. But when it happens, it does take a little chunk of the bone with it. When this happens, we call this an avulsion fracture. Here's an example of an avulsion fracture on an x-ray of a hand. You can see the smaller chunk of bone here that has been pulled away from the rest, and that creates the fracture line. These types of fractures can occur anywhere in the body, but they are more common in your ankle, elbow, wrist, and hand area. So, due to the lack of hard impact to Paul's hand, this type of fracture is probable. If an avulsion fracture did occur here, there are considerations to think about. If the avulsed chunk of bone is still lining up with the rest of the larger bone that it came off of, this is a good scenario, as this is called a non-displaced fracture, and they are easier to deal with. If that little chunk of bone is not lined up, then it is called a displaced fracture, which obviously can be more of a challenge with healing. Either way, it was announced that Paul will be having surgery next week. It is worth noting that Chris Paul has previously had an avulsion fracture in his hand. Thank you. Take care.